my leg operation. And then I still remember at one point, 2 weeks after that, I was sitting in the hospital. I had gone to get a follow-up X-ray, and I'm sitting there, and so the rod goes through my knee all the way down to the ankle, and then there are screws that go in. So I'm sitting and waiting for my X-ray, and my 65-year-old mother is sitting next to me, and she says, CJ, I'm getting very worried about your sex life. I said, Mom, relax. Like, my performance is not going to suffer. She said, no, but like, what about your knees? What about your footwork? I was like, footwork? I was like, what exactly is my father doing in the bedroom? Like, he's not supposed to take a run up, right? Like, I mean, what does he do? What does he do for foreplay? Like tap dance? So, and even while I was having this conversation with my mom, I was laughing and I kept engaging her in this conversation. And that time also she was like, you're going to do this on stage, aren't you? I was like, yeah, Mom. you just keep talking.
Hello and welcome to Absolutely Akili. In today's episode of Sit Down with Stand-Ups, we have a very special comic with us today. One of the nicest human beings I've ever come across. This man has put the mark of Indian stand-up comedy at a global level. He is also a motivational speaker and a life coach. And not only this, he also runs a charity for underprivileged children that is indeed funded by his comedy. Please put your hands together for a very special and talented guest on today's episode of Sit Down with Stand-Ups, Papa CJ.
I haven't heard of Papa CJ. Who's he? मैं कोई शाहरुख खान अमिताभ बच्चन थोड़ी. You never know. अभी picture बाकी.
Hi Papa CJ, welcome to the show. Absolutely Akili.
Thank you Akili for having me here.
I begin this new podcast as Sit Down with Stand-Ups, and I thank you for coming. Like, that's what I want to say. It's a good day for me.
Thank you for having me.
CJ, with this famous TikTok and Instagram comics influencing, and there are dozens of all around, what is your advice for those pursuing comedy as a serious career?
I really don't. If I had to give only one, firstly, I think each person carves their own path. It's not for anybody else to really give them advice. Each person takes a different route depending on what their motivations are, what their style of comedy is, what they want to get out of it. But if I was to give just one piece of advice, all I would say is enjoy it. Yeah, it's a beautiful profession. It's great fun, and like you said, if they were pursuing it seriously, I'd say don't pursue it seriously. Just have fun with it, and the more you enjoy it, I'm guessing the more success you will also find. However you choose to define that success. Yeah.
CJ, from corporate to comedy, how has your life changed?
It hasn't changed a lot because I used to do management consulting, which is basically talking bullshit. And then I moved to stand-up comedy, which is also talking bullshit. So not much of a difference, except in management consulting, you're kissing somebody's ass because you're in a job. But when you do stand-up comedy, you're kicking the same guy's ass. But so I think the comedy is more fun.
Okay. And how has the world of stand-up comedy changed with the rise of, with this new media, OTT platforms, YouTube? What do you have to say in that?
Well, I think it's been a great blessing for people because it has allowed talent to get noticed very quickly and become popular very quickly. And it has also opened up different careers for people. I started at a time where there wasn't much stuff happening online.
Correct.
In fact, I used to joke earlier that stand-up comedy is like sex. It's best enjoyed live, not in front of a screen.
Yeah.
So if you're watching it on a screen, you're surfing comedy porn. So personally, I have never been a fan of doing stuff in front of the camera. I much prefer live audiences, but that's my bias. But I think the rise of things online and OTT platforms has been absolutely fabulous, because the world has been able to see talent whom they wouldn't have necessarily been able to see otherwise, because they would have to jump through many hoops and take many years to
Correct.
get to a point where they could get noticed if they were only going through the live scene. And like I said earlier, it's opened up many other career avenues where some people make a living doing stuff just online. So I think it's a great blessing.
And you were not part of that blessing, because when you started, it was not there. Like there was not much of an OTT
No, it's
and a
not so
YouTube.
much. It's not so much that, Akhili. I think it's a bit of a conscious choice. I still don't think of stand-up comedy as a career. I still kind of think of it as a hobby. I'm just having fun and enjoying myself. And I don't think it makes any sense to leave the corporate job, get into a creative field, and then be in a rat race in the creative field. I'm not going to do something just because somebody else is doing it and they're getting a certain amount of success doing that. I'm going to do it because I enjoy doing this, because I like doing it. And I'm not, I don't have the patience for shooting and editing and retakes. And I would much rather enjoy the spontaneity of a live audience and perform in front of them uh, than necessarily chase a number of hits or things like that online. It's perfectly fine for people to do, but it's not something that uh, that is for me. It doesn't motivate me or inspire me. Also, I'm not really, I'm not driven by fame. I think fame is a byproduct of what we do, because the nature of the profession is that you're on stage. It's a public sort of profession. But I do it because I love doing it, not because the fame motivates me.
Yeah, I remember you said something that you are the most unfamous comic, or the most
Yeah, I sometimes joke that
something.
I'm the most famous comedian who nobody knows,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
in India, most of my work is kind of corporate. It's corporate, closed doors. Uh, so as a result, the industry knows me, the event managers know me, a lot of the corporates know me. But if you ask the general public, they'd be like, I haven't heard of Papa CJ. Who's he? So I'm not necessarily a public figure.
On this note, I would just want to extend my question saying that a female comic and a male comic. I
Yeah,
know artist
yeah,
is an artist. I agree to that. But I can still see
yeah.
that lag, and not even India, but globally, I can see that lag. And why it is so? What do you think that
Yeah.
the male comic is still there, very prominently, established, but not the female comic? Why is that? Do they don't have the sense of humor, or
No, there's no such thing as they don't have the sense of humor. See, firstly, I'm not qualified to answer that question, because I'm not a woman. So I don't know what it is like to go through what somebody like yourself would go through. Right? So I don't know what your experience is. However, I have worked with so many women who are wonderful comedians, from all over the world. I mean, if you look at anybody, Hannah Gatsby, Josie Long, there are just so many of them. Niti Palta, who's a very close friend. But there are just so many fantastic women who are talented comedians. So, firstly, I don't believe that men are funnier than women, or women are funnier than men. But yes, there are definitely additional challenges that women get to face when they're pursuing a career as stand-up comedians. So sometimes things like that make it harder for you to get to shows. As a woman, sometimes traveling at night for a show is harder. And if you don't necessarily have somebody who can take you for a show in a city which is not necessarily safe for a woman to travel at night, then just by virtue of that, you have fewer opportunities to be on stage.
yeah,
And in a profession where you learn by being on stage, that is a disadvantage.
yeah.
But no, I think women are very funny and they're superbly talented. So I don't believe there is any gender divide when it comes to talent, but in terms of the challenges, and
And the
also
commitment.
I believe the perception, some of it comes from the ego of the audience, where there are certain jokes that they may not be willing to take from a comedian, right? If that comedian is a woman. And this would be your, I mean, you are better qualified to answer this, and you can tell me whether I'm right or wrong on this. But there are a lot of women who don't care. They're like, this is my sense of humor. You like it, fine. You don't like it, also fine. I mean, Sarah Silverman is not going to pull back or hold back on any of her jokes, depending on who's in the audience. That's who she is, and she's going to do it, you know.
So yeah, I totally agree to your point. That's there.
Well,
In future, do you think that there will be a institute or a university giving the degree of comedy?
well, there are places that have already started running comedy courses. I know there is a university in Kent in the UK that does have some kind of a comedy course. So,
and you joined
yes,
something as well. Back
there
then.
will be stuff like that, but I think it's really the kind of job you learn by doing. You know, the best education you can have is just getting on stage night after night and learning from the bad shows. You know, you learn nothing from a good show because you just walk off thinking I'm amazing. But in a bad show, you're forced to adapt on the spot. And if you can't adapt on the spot, then you're forced to ask yourself, okay, if I'm in front of a similar audience in a similar country again, you know, what can I do differently so I don't look like a fool? And that's what makes you grow.
Correct. But, you know, like there are MBAs and there are engineers, you know, specific courses and university giving you the stamp degree. So for comedy, do you know, this art form is so required. People are getting into depression so often. You know, once in a lifetime, a human is going under that phase. Some symptoms of clinical depression, some symptoms of some other kind of a depression. And mostly people have not recognized it also. You know, people sitting next to me, my family members, people are having. So I think that it should be a mandate that one person from a family should be a comedian, or, you know,
well, you don't have to be you don't have to be a professional stand-up comedian or have to study comedy for that. Yeah, you can just tell jokes that you hear from your friends, you know. So I don't think you necessarily need training for that. Everybody has a sense of humor within them. And if you look at your own family, there are people who are incredibly hilarious, but they have no comedy training.
You said that stand-up comedy is outward expression of an inward journey. Can you explain a bit about it?
Sure, I think that's the case for most art forms, you know, because in most art forms, you find that there are no rules, no boundaries, no guidelines, no social norms. Nobody saying you can do this, you can't do that. So you are forced to look inwards and ask yourself, what are the things that I find beautiful or that I find interesting or that I want to talk about? What is my point of view about this, you know? So the journey is an incredibly inward looking journey where you get very comfortable in your own skin. You know, initially when you start doing stand up, you want to impress everyone. So you'll go for the easy joke. You know, then you want to be seen as an edgy comedian. So you'll use bad language, you'll pick on positions of authority, you'll try and, you know, poke people. But eventually you need to be comfortable in your own skin, right? Because you can't keep changing what you do depending on who's in the room. I mean, then what is your voice? What is your personality?
True.
And eventually you get comfortable in your own skin in whatever your truth is, and your audience finds you. You know, the people who don't like you will automatically weed themselves out and say, oh, you know, I don't like this guy's stuff. I prefer so and so. So from that point of view, it makes a massive change in your whole life and the way you view the world, because you become an incredibly honest person in terms of the way you live. It's almost blunt. So when people meet you, they realize that, okay, with this person, what you see is what you get. He or she is not going to beat around the bush or say something they don't mean, because they've got used to just being honest and saying, this is what works for me. This is what I think. If you like it, fine. If you don't like it, also fine. I'm not here to offend you or attack you or say that your way of thinking is wrong. I'm just saying that this is what I think. So in that way, I believe any art form, not just stand-up comedy, it is of course an outward expression, but the journey is inward, you know, and it's a wonderful journey which has an impact on your whole life.
So, tell me about your university, your comedy university, where you spent some 2000 odd hours in a car with 500 plus comedians. So, how was your experience, your
Ah,
real time experience?
oh, it is phenomenal. I 100 shows, so I was doing about 250 shows on average per year. Now, out of those 700 shows, I'd say 400 of those shows would have been out of London. So on average, I would travel 4 to 6 hours a day just to perform 10 minutes. But I would be the middle act because I was the new guy. So I would be traveling with the opening act and the headliner. Now, the opening act and the headliner would have between 10 and 20 years of experience. So on the way to the show, I would see how they would prepare their sets. I would tell them that when we get there, please watch my show, please give me some feedback. On the way back, I would see how they analyze their own sets, how they did. I would listen to the feedback that they gave me. If it was a room which I found difficult to play and I didn't do very well, I used to watch and see how they worked the same room and were able to succeed and do well.
Yeah.
So that was exactly like you said. I've spent over 2,000 hours in cars with comedians who have been doing comedy for between 10 and 20 years. So that was a phenomenal learning experience in terms of getting to see the different styles of comedy that different comedians have.
Yeah.
And how they approach their work and getting their feedback on mine.
Great. CJ, now I want to ask you that CJ gets on the stage, a comedian before you or the host before you or anybody before you has literally sucked up the energy of the room. Literally sucked up the energy. So the mahal is very manus. Okay, trust me on this.
Yeah.
The mahal is really manus. Now you have to get on stage. You have to radiate that energy from you and put them on them, like put it on the audience. How do you do that? You see their faces, they're all staring you, they want to eat you up. So how you develop that sting?
See, for starters, by nature, I'm a very high energy performer. I am each person has their different styles. Some people are deadpan, some people are slow. I'm a performer. I enjoy the energy. So I think I take that energy with me on the stage. And if the environment is a certain way, or just address it, talk about it. Saying, guys, I walked on the stage and it looks like, you guys look like somebody's just died, but don't worry, I'm going to raise the dead, or something to that effect, But I think the important thing is the first 90 seconds on stage will determine how the rest of your show is going to go. In the first 90 seconds, you will know whether it's going to be an easy gig or whether you're going to have to work hard. And in my experience, you need to earn their confidence within the first 2 minutes. And literally get on stage, boom, joke, boom, another joke. Within 1 minute, just crack 4 jokes and get them laughing. Then what happens is you have gained their trust. They're like, okay, this guy's funny. He knows what he's doing. So that is really important, right? And once you've got that, then you're sailing. Once you get them to like you and you earn their trust in terms of their confidence in you knowing what you're doing and being able to make them laugh, then you can take them down paths that they would not have been willing to go before. That's been my experience, but I may be wrong. It may be different for different people.
No, that's a great tip. That's a pro tip that you've shared.
But the important thing is if you're a comedian who's watching this and you haven't been doing it for too long, is when you get on stage, don't chat, don't ramble, right? First, get your joke in, punchline within the first 15 seconds, next punchline within the next 15 seconds, next punchline within the next 15 seconds, right? Then the audience is thinking, okay, this guy's funny. Then you start chatting or doing whatever else. Then you've earned the right to talk for a minute without giving them a punchline. But first, just go boom, boom, boom. Of course, there are some comedians who are not that kind of comedian where they go boom, boom, boom. They're storytellers. So it may be different for different people. But the ethos of my point is prove you're funny as soon as you possibly can. Then you can chat.
What is your favorite audience interaction moment? Like, and what is the key to successfully engage them while you are on stage?
I think with audience interaction, the greatest tip I can give based on my experience is please do not have a conversation with an audience and have a pre-planned answer. I will ask them this question, they will say something, and depending on what they say, either I'll say this answer or I'll say that answer. No, don't do that. It is a conversation. Have a real conversation. See what they say. Depending on what they say, give an answer. Depending on what they say, again, give a different answer, right? But a lot of people think audience interaction is, I'm going to ask a question. Oh, any engineers in the house? Hey, oh, so that's where all the virgins are, you know? Firstly, that's of course been done a lot, but don't have a pre-planned thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, where do you live? I live in Ghatkopar, and what a shithole, right? So try and do something unique about what they're actually saying. You know, what can you talk about? Oh, where in Ghatkopar do you live? What is it that attracted you to the place? Whatever. All I'm saying is have a real conversation. See where it goes. You know, there are times where I have done 45 minutes of audience interaction before telling my first joke on stage.
Yeah,
right?
I've seen that.
And in fact, in many shows, I challenge myself not to tell any pre-planned jokes, just to have the conversation and see where it goes. You know, the jokes you always have in the bag, you can bring them out when you need them. But it's an interesting challenge for you as a performer as well, to see if you can take answers that the audience gives you and make them funny instantly. You know, and if you say something and something isn't funny, address that. Say, yeah, that was a shit joke, wasn't it? Don't worry, I'm a professional. I've got this. I'll bring it back. You know, that alone will release the tension in the room.
Sure. As you say that tragedy plus time is comedy.
Well, it's a very old saying. It's not just mine, but
as most of the comics says that.
Yeah.
You recently met with an accident. What is that funny thing which you think happened during that tragedy?
Well, I've written, I had an accident, a motorcycle accident in Ladakh, and I broke my leg. Means I smashed it in two pieces. And I've broken my wrist as well. I don't know if you can see, there's a huge scar over here.
Is there a
so
plate
I've got a metal
inside?
plate. Yeah, I've got a metal plate here and I have a metal rod in my leg. I've written a whole new show about it. 90 minutes. It's called Unbroken. And once this lockdown lifts, I'm going to bring it on stage. There are so many things that happened. In fact, even when the accident happened, while I was being transported, I was taking photographs. I was cracking jokes about it, you know. And at that point also, I was thinking that I know this is really painful now, but it's going to be hilarious on stage in 6 months, you know. So yeah.
Tell one incident, no, just one incident that like the moment that accident happened or something like that.
Not the moment, I'll tell you. So I had my leg operation, and then I still remember at one point, 2 weeks after that, I was sitting in the hospital. I had gone to get a follow-up X-ray, and I'm sitting there, and so the rod goes through my knee all the way down to the ankle, and then there are screws that go in. So I'm sitting and waiting for my X-ray, and my 65-year-old mother is sitting next to me, and she says, CJ, I'm getting very worried about your sex life. I said, Mom, relax. Like, my performance is not going to suffer. She said, no, but like, what about your knees? What about your footwork? I was like, footwork? I was like, what exactly is my father doing in the bedroom? Like, he's not supposed to take a run up, right? Like, I mean, what does he do? What does he do for foreplay? Like tap dance? So, and even while I was having this conversation with my mom, I was laughing and I kept engaging her in this conversation. And that time also she was like, you're going to do this on stage, aren't you? I was like, yeah, Mom. you just keep talking.
I'm just observing. Yeah. So if you were to write a letter to 20-year-old Papa CJ, what top three advices you would want to give?
Yeah. What advice would I give my younger self?
Yes, top three.
Oh, I just say have fun, man. Have fun, focus on human relationships. And I tell him that, boss, in 2020, something called COVID is going to come and you might not survive it. So just, no, of course, I wouldn't say anything morose like that. But yeah, I just say have fun and be kind to people. Yeah. It's the advice I would give anybody.
Anything you think that you would have done it in the past, which you regret right now? That you know what?
I'm not a fan of the word regret because I think as you age, your point of view about things change. Your value system changes a bit. You know, you and when at a certain age you do things that feel right to you at that time. You know,
Yeah.
so you can look back and say, "Oh my God, I can't believe I did something like that." But that's who you were at that point in time. You know, so for example, I mean, one of the things that I hate about this profession, and maybe it's one of the reasons I hardly do any public shows, is I don't like self promotion, right? I absolutely hate it. Self promotion, social media, this whole attention seeking, look at me, right? Where you're trying to boost yourself up. Have I done that in the past? Yes, like in obnoxious ways, because I felt that's what I needed to do, as being a part of the job, or, but I hate it. And the thing is, I don't have uh, a manager in India or a PR agency or an agent or somebody else who says, "Oh, look, isn't he amazing?" You know, so I do everything myself. I'm the guy who writes the jokes. I'm the guy who performs them. I'm the guy who writes the invoice. I'm the peon who goes and posts it. You know, so but yeah, I don't think we all make mistakes over the course of our lives. We do things that, as you get older, you realize maybe that's not something I should have done. But that's a futile point of view to have. The better way of looking at it is saying I'm a little bit more mature now, and going forward, I won't do something like that. But do you still get caught up in it sometimes? Sure. But it's okay. We're all human. We're allowed to make mistakes. It's part of life. But if you can joke about it, then it's great to take on stage.
Something you enjoy doing and you wish you have more time for.
Something I enjoy doing and wish I have more time for. Well, travel, yeah. I enjoy doing it. I have all the time to do it, but the world is closed. So
Yeah.
I'm really hoping it opens up and this disease goes away and the whole world gets safe again. And stand-up
Everybody's
comedy,
hoping
obviously,
that.
which is all closed now thanks to COVID-19.
CJ, where you get this motivation from? Like, you have some 5 famous sets with you, some hundreds of sets, I must say. But where every time you get this motivation from, that you know what, I'll write about my observation or I'll write a joke on this.
Actually, I'm not a very enthusiastic writer. I'm quite a lazy writer, Akhil. So in fact, for me, over the course of time, I've got a little bit better at crowd interaction. Now, that is my greatest strength. It has also become my greatest weakness. Because I know I'm okay at crowd interaction, I become a lazy writer. So I get on stage thinking, chalo yaar, aaj gappa hi marte. Right? So I just go and do 40 minutes of crowd work and tell 10 jokes and walk off. So between you and me, no, I'm not a prolific writer. I don't write so much, but I do a lot of improv on stage. I just, interact with the audience and I enjoy doing that. And then I bring in as many jokes as I need to put in for the show to work. But of course, that's public shows. When you do corporate gigs, you can't do that much interaction. So you tend to do more, sort of more gags than crowd work.
So in 2008,
Also, sorry.
yeah,
Let me
yeah,
just
please.
add to that. I also do a lot of customized content. So if I'm doing a show for a particular company, before the show, I will talk to people from that company, find out about the internal gossip and the politics and the people, and so I'll make it very personal to them and customized around them.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed. So I do that at private events, at corporate events. I enjoy doing that. Yeah. Sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, so I was saying that 2008, if I'm not wrong, correct me if I'm wrong. 2008 is when you moved back to India.
Yes, early 2008,
that
end of
early
2007.
2008,
Yeah.
Maybe 2009, when you were already pretty established because you were there
Yeah.
in UK. When you entered in India 2008, 2009, when people started showing up, so there must be handful of comics back then. And there are handful of them who are at the top now, like you, like more other comedians. There are handful of them are still struggling. What extra you
Yeah.
did to be there, and what was that these guys left behind and you guys reached to the top?
Okay, a few things. Firstly, I don't know if there is anything such as the top, right? Each person takes a different journey, a different path. It's not a competition, right? We're not competing with anybody else. I don't think you should. It's not a nice way to live, because then your sense of happiness and self-worth is based on a comparison with somebody else. So I don't think there is a top, so to say. I think I was, and I am definitely not anywhere near the top in whatever way you choose to
If I say
define it.
established is a better word. So you guys are established.
See-
Some of them are not. What extra thing you have done?
See, I had a huge advantage because when I came back and started doing stand-up comedy, there was nobody else, right? So at that time, if you asked anybody, have you heard of English language comedians? They will say Papa CJ Vidas,
Correct.
right? Because there was nobody else doing it. Not because we were necessarily very talented or very good or whatever. Well, I'm not speaking for Veer for myself,
Yeah.
but and Veer is very hardworking and talented, and he does, he deserves all the success that he gets. But so I was lucky in that there was nobody else then. So everyone got to know of you, and then slowly, I mean, I played some part in building up the scene, especially in Delhi. And then once it kicked off, then I was no longer required at the ground level to support open mic nights and get things going because the ball was rolling. People had started running their own nights. So from my point of view, I was there at the start. I was the only one, which is why I got known. For other comedians, it's different for different people, and different people find different kinds of success depending on what they want to do. Some people become massive because of the internet. If you look at, if you look at Zakir Khan, if you look at Amit Tandon, in the last few years, they've blown up. They've become massive. What are the reasons for that? One, the internet has helped them go viral. Two, they work very hard. Three, they love what they do. And four, they are very talented. Right? But I don't think that you can get to any level of, so to say, success, however you choose to define it, without putting in the work. You have to put in the work. You can create a 5-minute video clip that will get 10 million views online and you can fill up a theater. But that 5-minute clip will not teach you how to hold a live audience for 1 hour. You have to get on stage as often as you possibly can to learn how to do that. So I'd say it's important to learn the trade before you learn the tricks of the trade. And I think you just gotta enjoy it. Just have fun. Yeah, have fun. If you enjoy it, you'll work hard at it anyway. You won't even feel like it's hard work because you're just having fun. And don't think of it as a job. Do not think of it as a competition. Please don't compare yourself with anybody else's sense of humor. Also, I would say is, I'm not a fan of saying negative things about other comedians. Each person grows at their own pace. Each person has a different sense of humor. It may not work for you, but if it works for that audience, fine. There is no right way to do it. Each person has their own way. So just, figure out what your way is and follow it. Yeah.
Just go for it.
Yeah.
So we are towards the end of our show. I'll play this quick game with you. Okay.
Okay.
It is known as Answer in a Flash.
Okay.
Yeah. CJ, what keeps your clock ticking? Is it discipline, self-motivation, or manifestation?
Batteries.
Sorry.
Well, you asked me what keeps my clock ticking. My clock works on batteries.
Batteries?
Madam, hello. Clock बने क्या? घड़ी बैटरी पे चलती है. क्या यार?
You bifurcated my question only.
Well, that's what a comedian does. Lateral thinking.
Okay, yeah. I think I have to cut that part. Anyway.
No, you can't cut it. Hello.
The way you
Because
said.
you flopped doesn't mean you cut it out, okay? You keep it in there and you learn from it.
Okay. If you would have only one choice, what it would be? A dog or a child?
A dog or a child?
Yeah. Flash.
Neither. Yeah, because as cute as and adorable as they are, they require full-time attention and caring. And I want to travel the world into stand-up comedy. So thank you so much. I would prefer a lover.
Okay.
And when I say lover, I definitely don't mean a child, by the way. Just to let me elaborate that very clearly.
So best place to be on stage, at vacation, or at home?
On stage.
On stage?
Definitely. Anytime. 7 days a week.
Okay. If you have to stick to one career, as you've done both, what would that be? Will it be a comedy or will it be a life coach?
I don't need any options for that. Definitely stand-up comedy.
Comedy, anyway.
100%.
Okay. Brilliant. CJ, I want to tell you, and I want to tell the audience as well, that this man has written this beautiful book, Naked. And trust me, I've gone through this book in a day's time. I've never gone through any of the textbook in such a short period of time. But yeah, this is one interesting hell of a journey of this man. Please go grab a copy. You'll find it in Amazon. You find it in many other. Is it available other than on the?
Yeah,
Amazon?
I've got a website, papacjnaked.com. Okay. So if you go to that, you can have access to the book and to the comedy special. Also, please tell your audience that there are no naked pictures of me inside, so they don't have to worry about that.
Guys, there's no naked picture. But only the cover page is only fascinating here, but you'll not find anything else.
That cover page is a photograph from a live show. This is at a theater in London, and the photographer has taken the photograph while I'm on stage. He's taken it from backstage. It's
lovely. You built some bodies back then?
No. This is a very strategically cropped photograph. It has been cropped just in the right place before the love handles come in.
No, I must say, it's a very, very attractive front page. How on this earth you have so much balls? Like you have taken case of Mrs. Mittal, Usha Mittal. The thing I've read, okay, Shobha Day. I mean, don't you get little वो विजय माल्या को उसका किंगफिशर का जोक सुना दिया?
See, I'm not a.
डर नहीं लगता?
I'm not a. Actually, why is this not part of the interview?
It should be.
See, I'm not a confrontational comic by nature, right? And no, let's and I don't like upsetting people or getting people angry or pissing people off or picking on people, right? So, but most people take it in a good spirit, yeah, because it's all fun and games, and they know that I mean well.
No, right? But how you get this करेज कि अब मैं ये पूछने वाला हूँ, अब आई विल स्पॉइल यू. I am going to enter
No,
into
the
that
intention is never
lane. Yeah, देखो, if you know,
See,
if you're talking about somebody about the tweet and which was not posted right, the person का दिमाग खराब हो जाएगा
see,
कि ये क्या बोल गया.
the only time in my life that I have actually ever been confrontational
Yeah,
has been with Shobha Day,
वही
right?
देखा मैंने. हाँ.
Because there I was genuinely upset, and I thought that that was not fair for her to say that about our sports people who work so hard, which is why I said that. Otherwise, I don't like confrontation. मेरे को थोड़ी किसी के साथ पंगे लेने, शांति से खुशी से जिंदगी जीने.
Correct. I completely agree. But
हाँ.
वो अंदर से इतना
हाँ.
आता कहाँ से
All
है,
these things
मतलब.
now, all these things should be in your interview. It'll be fun. Guys, Akhili is lovely. Subscribe to her channel. She will talk to people who will be far more interesting than me. So this is just the beginning. She wants to start right at the bottom, set the bar low, and then get things to go
Oh,
better.
nothing like
Go
that.
on then.
Come on. So, Papa CJ, we'll end the show here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming over. It was an amazing time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
All the best.
Bye bye.
My pleasure. Bye.
Have a good day.